Hello and welcome to One on One. I am Cyril Stober. This edition promises to be an interesting one. My guest is described as a creative technologist and entrepreneur. He's interested in innovation, renewable energies, big data, agriculture, and development policy. Let's welcome Nasser YAMMAMA. Thanks for being with us in One on One.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here.
Right. There's so much about you, which we'll be talking about in the course of this program. But let's just start off by saying Nasser holds a bachelor's degree in Information Technology and Business Information Systems from Middlesex University in London, a master's degree in Creative Technology from the same university, that's Middlesex University. And he's also been at the famous MIT, that's the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he holds certificates in innovation and entrepreneurship. He's also been at the University of Cambridge. Nasser has done so many things. He's set up a number of enterprises on his own, among them Verdant Agritech, which proffers solutions to agricultural issues and challenges. It's meant to improve agricultural productivity using new technologies. But this is just part of what we'll be talking about today. But let's start with the man himself. Thanks for being here. You have done a lot in what might be described as a relatively short time as a young Nigerian. And there are numerous awards which, if I were to go ahead and read here, would take a long time. One, of course, a few stand out, like the Young Leaders Award, Queen Elizabeth II, which you received in 2017. There's also the Virgin Group Enterprise Challenge Award, that's in 2014 from the Virgin Group. You're also something of an ambassador for the Virgin Group and numerous other organizations. So let's start. What's this thing about creative technology? Tell us.
Okay, well, creative technology is a kind of a new age discipline, if you like, a new science. And I actually studied creative technology in university. It's a combination of innovation, technology, and new ideas. So whatever is done to bring about new ways of doing things, be it interaction or activity or communication, can all be described as creative technology. And I believe we are perhaps the first or second set to have studied it in the UK. And I believe now it's kind of taken shape in many other countries, and many universities are offering it. But to cut the long story short, what we studied and what we professionalized in was, becoming inventors and makers of, new ways of doing things using technology.
Well, new ways of doing things using technology, that's exactly what a country like Nigeria needs, especially at this time.
Indeed.
So how will all of this be applicable to the quest for the new Nigeria that everyone's been talking about?
I mean, you'd agree with me that in Nigeria, perhaps there's no other place that has the right kind of environment for the application of new technologies like we do. Most areas are basically virgin and untouched by new technology, from infrastructure to existing but failing infrastructure, to even new things that need to be done. But let's not even mention the big things. Let's go to the soft things. You know how Nigerians are so doing well in areas like entertainment and in areas like entrepreneurship. I mean, if you saw any surveys in the world now, Nigeria has one of the highest numbers of entrepreneurs, from, you know, the people doing the menial entrepreneurships like frying akara by the roadside, to the ones that are selling recharge cards, to the ones that are actually building, you know, things and selling them off. All these are avenues for applications for technology. And to be specific with you, you'd see entrepreneurs like me who are applying technologies in agriculture and other sectors. You'd see others in health. You'd see others in many sectors that are so valuable to the continuation of life as we know it. But also in entertainment, in music, in many areas that I think are innumerable, to be honest.
All right, it said that these new technologies you talk about, it's, well, this is the world of the now generation, the young people. And it's been said that in this country, they happen to be the most productive segment who can apply knowledge to nation building. But again, there have been questions raised about the actual output and productivity levels of the Nigerian youth. What do you think about those?
Well, I don't believe that our productivity as you know, a collective group of, you know, being youth can be questioned in the first place. I believe if Nigerian youth were any less of a, you know, productive lot, the whole country would have collapsed. Because yes, we're out of most of the decision making in Nigeria, but by sheer population, we cannot be out of running the country, and we are indeed making it run from its length to its breadth. And I absolutely think that the Nigerian youth lacks, you know, the avenues of expression and the avenues of productivity that will kind of showcase the true capability of what we can do. And by this I mean, take for instance, a young entrepreneur goes to the bank to get a loan to start a venture. Do you know the probabilities of him coming out with an actual loan? Absolutely low. And if you spoke to the bank, they'd tell you that you know, the business case wasn't there. It was too risky. There was no business plan. They cannot do it. Meanwhile, nobody's thinking of investing in the actual, you know, education with the skill development for the entrepreneur to be able to bring about that required business plan. So in essence, I'm saying that the Nigerian youth in themselves are benign, and we cannot blame the failure of an entire system that started probably since the beginning of the youth's life to say, you know, they're unproductive, for instance, because, for instance, I have no means of controlling the quality of my primary and secondary school education, because, you know, it was, for once, probably public, it was incapable, but despite all that, I achieved the lot that I did. I mean, I'm not referring to myself specifically, but millions of Nigerian youth.
Right.
So I don't think we should start with, you know, the kind of generic blame of the Nigerian youth when it comes to the development of the country. If anything, with the right kind of release of energy to the Nigerian youth, I think we can take this country to unimaginable.
Perhaps what the older generation are looking for is to have more numbers of young people who can rightly be referred to as achievers, pace setters in what they do. Well, you would like to use so many examples of Nigerian youth, the Narcissus of this world, who can achieve so much in their 20s, like you did.
Yes, I mean, that's absolutely right. Everybody would want to be in that kind of subset of high achievers. But when you have a number bordering 100 million young people, you do know that whatever you get is going to be in high numbers. So let's talk about the achievers. I absolutely believe there are so many unsung, unheard of, remarkable young people in Nigeria. I mean, off the back of my head, I could name what, 20 right now. So some of them we don't really know, and we haven't really kind of prodded to find out. On the other hand, there are some people who are diligent at what they do, and that's the one thing you need, even in the labor of an economy, to move any economy forward. People who get the job done, go to work on time, do not cheat, get the job done. These people are never celebrated, are never, in the news for doing the right thing. And on the other hand, there are the ones who do the bad things. And you do know how bad news travels faster than anything. And that's the one that you consistently and continuously hear about. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not a dent on our image, and I'm not saying that it's not, in fact, young people that are doing these bad things. But I'm just saying that we need to find a balance. We need to be able to tell the stories of the achievers and the right doers, the people that do the right thing more.
Okay, let's look at so many other issues. For instance, what could affect the development of the youth in order to give them that environment you talked about so as to achieve their potential? Would it be the system of education? Would it be policy? You're also interested in development policy. Would it also be something else that's standing in the way where the young people, or is it politics, for instance? And you do find that from time to time questions are raised about the level of youth participation in politics and in governance. Are these the issues that are holding back the youth?
So I would agree with you. It's a bit of many things. It's certainly not, a single problem. You cannot solve one thing and say you have kind of, solved the panacea of the Nigerian youth. However, I believe a deliberate investment, first from the public sector, towards the Nigerian youth would make such a remarkable difference. For instance, you mentioned the educational system. Now, to go back to the basic, to say that universal basic education is instituted, to say that tertiary education is free universally as well, is kind of difficult to do immediately. And even when you do that, the numbers are just outstanding for you to record any kind of meaningful development in a short while. However, we have seen how countries hacked this kind of development. You see how countries like Brazil, which is in a number of ways a lot like Nigeria, is dealing with its young population. It's helping people off the streets, making sure that young people not only get an education but get meaningful jobs. So one thing that the government would do is, for instance, let's take the issue of jobs for young Nigerians. You see everybody aspiring or clamoring to get a job in the CBN, for instance. Meanwhile, the CBN is by no means an avenue to provide jobs for Nigerians. It is meant to service the industries that will give jobs to Nigerians. So why don't we focus on that? Why don't we make sure that people don't get in line to get a job in the CBN as an achievement? Why can't we make it that the CBN has a number of enterprises that has benefited from the policies or the regulatory services or whatever the CBN offers, and make sure that the industry is booming? Meanwhile, hundreds of jobs will be provided in that regard. And coming back to education, there are numerous educational agencies like TEP Fund, like the Petroleum Trust Development Fund, like that provide scholarships, that provide grants for research and all of that. And most of these things are done the way they've been always done in Nigeria,
Right.
We need a change. We need deliberate investment in young people, whether it's direct or indirect, but with an actual focus on making sure that the young man or woman moves from 0 to 1.
Okay, talking about creating these avenues and investing in them, one thing that's always been talked about, especially by this administration, is the need to use agriculture to boost development. Now, easily we see that you also are interested in using new ideas to boost agricultural production, and you have set up something that should provide a pointer to this. What are the ways that you can get people interested, especially young people, interested in these ideals that will increase and improve productivity?
Okay, so I'm incredibly passionate about agriculture and how it can be used as a vehicle to do exactly this, what I'm saying. And I believe it starts from, the policy. I don't know if you've come across the agricultural promotion policy of Nigeria, which is a remarkable document. But as you very well know, we are exceptional in coming up with remarkable policy documents. One thing I would point out to is to make agriculture exciting and attractive to young Nigerians, we need to do a lot more than just say it is exciting and attractive, So young people are naturally excited to vibrancy. You very well know, you still are a young man, right? You've been on. So, we like things that kind of pique our interest, right? So you can't deliberately show pictures of people, say, benefiting from the Anchor Borrowers program as rural, as just, coming out of poverty, and still expect a young person who needs a job from NNPC to go back to that kind of mentality. And I'm not saying that all young people are university graduates and are not, in fact, in the rural areas. However, if you check the rural-urban migration rate, you would know that a lot of them are, trying to come here to the cities, moving to the urban areas and leaving the rural areas. So the interventions need to go back to that. So we need to look scientifically, we need to look systematically, say, okay, what are the irrigation systems that we need to set up in rural areas that lack water to make young people become, interested in agriculture? And then what are the markets? For instance, rather than just say we want to, make rice production reach a higher level, why can't we check and find a commodity that the market is actually interested in? It's not all rice, it's a particular set of rice. For instance, we substitute international rice with local rice, but would you buy the local rice if it still had stones or if it still didn't have the kind of production quality that the foreign rice has? You simply wouldn't. So we need to make sure that it becomes an end-to-end. Look at how young people consume music, for instance. It's deliberate, it's targeted, it's vibrant. We need to make agriculture exactly like that. And there's no better time to do it now. Look at how modern technologies are coming into agriculture. Advancements in drones technology, advancements in, say, even seed technology. There's a seed that's resistant to, pests, to even, insects, to many things that, we could just employ. Even if it's not to improve productivity, which it in fact will, but to entice young people. I absolutely believe technologies can do that for us.
Renewable energies, because I'm tying this all to improved productivity, well, from the farm to the table, as they say, but again, in the value chain, you do require energy.
Absolutely.
And you're interested in renewable energies. And the world is talking about renewable energies. And it's one of the biggest crises that this country faces. Again, new ideas. You think it's relying on the old systems that is the drawback? Or what are the innovations that we should be thinking about?
Okay, so I'm quite happy with Nigeria when it comes to, I think, renewable energy, because we've always relied on hydroelectric dams, and that in itself is a plus. However, those systems have failed, and if anything, the new advancements we have in areas of renewable energies have proved that you can certainly do much more with solar, with wind, and with biofuels and many other things. And I'm happy that Nigeria's lack of power is so crippling that we are continuously realizing that we cannot move forward without solving that. And thus, there's a lot of investment, there's a lot of kind of attention to power. And so far, there's a steady increase, if I may say, in generation. I don't know about distribution, but I think the future, or the immediate future, is about those grids that are not, part of the main sort of, all eyes on you grid that we have in Nigeria, I think it's going to be about how many, settlements are powered by, what solar farms, and how many, individual companies are able to go off the grid and power themselves sustainably. And I certainly believe that anybody who looks at, for instance, the real estate market in Abuja or any part of a big city in Nigeria would see, the inverters, the solar panels, and how everybody's just actively trying to solve the problem. And that's exactly the approach that our public sectors and our investors in power need to understand. There's no place for the old players. There's no place for coal and fossil fuels in terms of power generation. The world needs to be sustained, and we need to be powered. And we not only need to do that, but we need to do that at an alarming rate for productivity to actually...
People would argue easily and say, yes, in a country like Nigeria, solar should be a ready alternative.
Mm-hmm.
But again, investment is thought to be really massive, and probably the funds would never be there, for instance, to engage in that kind of investment which you're looking at as to turn things around in the short time, because, as they say, this country is in a hurry to develop.
Indeed, but sir, you can actually look at that as a kind of an opportunity rather than a hindrance, because yes, it requires substantial levels of investment. However, I definitely can beat my chest to say we have spent more and not completed it. We have spent so many billions of dollars to electrify Nigeria, and we have failed. So no amount of investment right now would be too much when you look at how far we've come. And these funds are actually available, because it's like you saying that you cannot fuel your car to get to work. You must get to work. Fueling your car cannot be expensive. You need to do it to get going, right? So that's what we must do. And I know a few examples of some world class technology services. For instance, the oil company Total. Some of Total's filling stations are completely off the grid. They have one of the best solar solutions in the world. And I have seen their revenue models when it comes to setting up solar solutions, how you actually pay with usage. So the investment cost is not there for you. And I know there are definitely a number of even local solutions out there that give that kind of solutions. Like in Kaduna, there's a solar company that I know have set up, I think, a solar solution for not only estates but street lights, and it's working wonderfully well.
Well, as we move ahead in applying new ideas to solving Nigeria's huge problems.
So infrastructure as we know it, I have quite a radical kind of view towards it. Let's take agriculture, for instance. Let's say you have a farm in Niger State and you grow yam, right? And you need a road network that works very well from the door of your farm to a market, say in Utako, Abuja, directly. Now, we could build this road for you as government, and then you bring your yam, but on arrival, the yam that you grew is absolutely useless. Utako people do not want it. Abuja people do not want that yam. How useful is that road for you as a rural farmer who knows nothing of coming to Abuja other than to sell yam? It's absolutely useless. So my view is we need to kind of develop the markets that will put the infrastructures we need in place. You don't need a cargo airport if nobody wants to bring cargo to your city as a governor.
Right.
So why can't we kind of develop a new way of looking at infrastructure so that we do housing where housing is needed? We build a railroad where a railroad is needed. We build an airport where an airport is needed. In Abuja, for instance, there's a massive need for, housing because of the things we've mentioned, rural-urban migration, so it absolutely makes sense. And look, do you know the housing projects of the public sector, the ratio between public and private sector. Have you seen the number of new real estate companies that are springing up constantly in Abuja? That's what happens when there's a demand, when there's a need, But in Nigeria, we tend to believe that, okay, we're going to do this because, I made a promise in the campaign season, or, or people would be happy to have it. It's not quite the case. However we look at it, we are a developing country, but we need to develop in accordance to some kind of system. We just cannot have sporadic infrastructure. It solves no problem. You're going to have roads that people don't use. Meanwhile, people do need a lot of roads in Nigeria. Roads will actually develop an economy if you build them, right? We knew that hundreds of years ago. Rails, same thing. All infrastructure, by indication, is meant to develop an economy. And I'm happy that the current administration has taken that quite seriously. Since 2015, I believe, a lot of spending has gone into infrastructure. I just need it to be a lot more systematic, a lot more deliberate and dedicated to solving problems, especially market problems when it comes to economic building.
So speaking about cities and the development of infrastructure, a short while ago, you featured prominently in some talk, which I believe has to do with MIT, which you're no stranger to, and is said to be REAP, if I might use the acronym.
Okay.
All right, the MIT REAP, with particular regard to the development of Abuja. Can we talk about that?
Certainly. So REAP is MIT Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program, and it has been going on, I think, for the 5th or 6th year, where MIT brings regions of the world to accelerate them using the frameworks of entrepreneurship that MIT has developed and believes will actually enhance and develop the region as an entrepreneurial kind of cluster to make sure that innovation-driven entrepreneurship is nurtured in the area. I believe Nigeria is the only country to have been represented twice. Lagos was there a couple of years ago, and you can see what happened to the Yaba the technological kind of cluster there,
right.
How it has developed since that. And this year, Abuja would be represented by a team, I think, championed by the Honorable Minister of Communications, and also co-championed by the PEF Executive Secretary, and formed of a team of really remarkable people from entrepreneurship to government to risk capital. So this is what happens at REAP. SMEs and IDEs. Small and medium enterprises you could set up tomorrow. You could start a laundry shop and people will bring their clothes, you wash, you're making money. But how can you serve the world with a laundry shop? Meanwhile, an IDE is about how do you create a washing machine, which you can sell in any part of the world and which can save time, labor. You get what I mean? So that is what we're going to do in MIT, to make sure that we have studied the patterns that have worked in the world in bringing about innovation-driven entrepreneurs that will provide jobs and bring foreign direct investment to the country, and also enhance the immediate community. And you would agree with me that Abuja is in dire need of such an intervention.
This isn't the first experience with this innovation, is it?
No. So in 2015, I was selected by MIT as one of 50 global entrepreneurs that they believed would change the world. And we participated in a boot camp called the MIT Innovation and Entrepreneurship Boot Camp. And it's in its almost 5th year now as well. And it brings entrepreneurs from all over the world. And MIT believes it has kind of developed the framework, the basic framework that as an entrepreneur that wants to change the world, you need to take some steps which could yield to results, and that is what it teaches you at that boot camp. So I've been part of the MIT community since then. Recently, I was also selected as a coach for the boot camp, believing that I have kind of exemplified the steps well. I went to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, where I coached other students or entrepreneurs in science technology from all over the world. And yeah, so that was my first involvement with MIT, and now I'm going back as a member of the Abuja REAP cohort.
Okay, so now as Nigerians would say, the homeboy has had this exposure and has been recognized on a world scale.
Mm.
What does the homeboy bring to changing Nigeria?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I believe that a lot of, in fact, most of what I do is towards that. Nigeria kind of presents an interesting challenge. It looks impossible. It looks daunting. It kind of hits you every day. You want to cry sometimes when you go out. You kind of look back and see your mates in other parts of the world, flourishing and getting a lot of things that, in material terms you could also get, and then you figure out that you have to be in a place where there's no electricity 24/7, where you have to suffer with easy things in terms of setting up businesses and all of that. So what I'm doing in clear terms is going against that pull. It's like a creative irreverence in itself to be in Nigeria. You are basically presented with so much, and you have to do a lot. But I'm working in agriculture, I'm working in manufacturing, I'm working in even health and sanitation, in many areas that I believe are the kind of shortcuts that, if solved, would actually push Nigeria out of the majority of the problems that we find ourselves. You might ask me, how exactly, because this is quite vague, right, and broad. Look at food, for instance.
Right.
Look at how, if you solve the problem of agricultural productivity in terms of food alone, you would have solved a problem of malnutrition, a problem of productivity for not only young people, but the majority of Nigerians. And I say productivity because it's income. If 80% of all close to 200 Nigerians are directly involved in agriculture, it means that if you make even a slight dent in there, you would have gotten a lot of people out of poverty. So in a nutshell, my work is centered around lately poverty. A lot of what I do, the end goal is to make sure that we solve the problem of poverty, because only with with prosperity can you actually move forward as a country.
A lot of times people believe when there is a challenge, throw money at it.
Mm.
Does money solve everything?
Absolutely not. And I'm very happy you mentioned this, because going back to agriculture again, in Nigeria we absolutely believe this. You got it right, spot on. We believe intensification, more money, more seed, more fertilizer is going to solve the problem. It doesn't quite work like that. No matter how much money you put to young people to build ventures, if they do not have the skills, if they do not have the prerequisites to make sure that a venture stands, as opposed to an SME, a venture stands for 100 years. Imagine if we had just 10 companies in Nigeria that exist for 100 years. Let's say just 10 jobs or 500 jobs ongoing for 500 years. But how many companies can we look at and say have been existing for 40 years? It's hard. So that mentality of more money or intensification needs to be out of our system, and it needs to be out soon. And I believe it's the bane of our corruption problems in Nigeria, because everybody really believes that if I had more money, I would somehow cheat death. I would be healthier. I would be able to afford foreign trips for my medication, that kind of thing. It really needs to come down to development with deliberate and calculated steps, not blind intensification or pumping out money. From our public to private sector, this needs to change, absolutely.
Belief in the Nigerian, and they talk all the time about the can-do spirit of the Nigerian, but now I'm looking at belief now in the ability of the younger generation to chip in, contribute to pulling Nigeria out of it. Many times they say, look, we think that the youth are not ready, and on the other side they say, no, you can't do away with the experience of the past. How and where do we bring the two together to maximize the benefits for the country?
Okay, thank you for that one too. It's something I'm absolutely passionate about as well, because a lot of the times they say young people are not ready, young people cannot do it, but how do you know when we haven't actually been given the opportunity? And you go for a job that requires 5 years experience and you're just out of uni. How do you get 5 years? You know, it's that catch-22 moment whereby they want you to go in so that you can get out, but you can't even go in. So how do you get out? You know? And a lot of the times, it's simple. All the countries that are doing it, like we like to say in Nigeria, have no two heads. It's simple. Where experience is required, pair, complement. So a lot of, for instance, let's take the public sector, let's take government. Most times you find young people being given aids in media. You know, I certainly feel insulted that 90% of all appointments of young people is in media. I mean, I'm not saying the media is not a crucial sector, but it certainly cannot be that all we're good in as young people is how to post Facebook posts.
Right. It's a good one. I like that. Let's go along that path.
Exactly.
Right.
So now look at for instance, the people that I say I'm very proud of as young people in Nigeria. Some of them, most of them are not in the media. Some of them are doing advocacy. Some of them are in agriculture. Some of them are in manufacturing. A friend of mine in the UK currently builds Rolls-Royce engines, jet engines for Rolls-Royce, and he and his brother, who also builds engineering outfits for a health company that manufactures prosthetics, wanted to come back to set up a company in Nigeria. And we started. It was near impossible because it was supposed to be an original equipment manufacturer in Nigeria. It's in its first year. We faced so much challenges. We started and it was going well. They are willing to move back to Nigeria to set up that company. But I tell you, everything seems to be set up against us. We've gone to every length to make sure that it goes well. I mean, you would know if you were in Nigeria or was an entrepreneur in Nigeria. No, that's one sector. It needs to be easy for us to be able to come back if we want to. Now, in government, some of us are not directly involved in politics, but it'll be reckless of us to say that we're not interested in politics or how we're governed, right? We love governance. We have to be part of governance if we want anything to change. But just because I haven't been on the campaign trail with anybody does not mean that I cannot contribute in the progress of a government. So we need to figure out as government officials, how do we bring in young people based on their competence, despite the fact that they are not actively partisan. And that is how countries move on. So imagine, recently there was a whole brouhaha about Sharon from Budget who got an appointment to serve as a technical advisor for the minister, I think. And that's a talent loss. That's Nigeria on the losing side, because he's a brilliant person who has been doing a lot in terms of budget. So we need to kind of close our eyes when it comes to Nigeria.
So sometimes partisanship stands in the way of getting the best hands to be on deck. I think there should be a change of the mindset. That's not everything about party politics, and that Nigeria does have people who can go ahead and do their bit without necessarily carrying a card.
Absolutely. Although I am one of those few who thinks do carry a card and also contribute to whoever wins. So on one hand, we need to be active in politics, and I believe that the Nigerian youth are not close to even doing enough to be active in politics. We need to be active in not only the voting, but the delegating, the delegate system. We need to be active in the actual standing to be elected. And we could go on and on about this. However, in essence, what I'm saying is even the expectation needs to change. Yes, the attitude needs to change.
But again, you would look at the system here. The hurdles are basically to return to that same old challenge, finances.
You could say that, but I don't think it's all about financing. Sometimes it's all about the coming together. For instance, say the old generation tells the young generation that you need to be different. You can't. You need to learn. You need to come into the system. We want to support you, but does nothing in the actual support. You know how it works. You need to get a godfather if you don't have one, and usually that whole godfather syndrome is all about financing, like you said.
Right.
However, imagine a situation whereby young people can vote. Young people are educated. Young people cannot, be subject to vote buying. And then there's an actual candidate, whether young or not, that the young vote once. That is power. Money cannot equate to that kind of power. Money does absolutely nothing to dent that kind of power. And that's what we need to build from yesterday. And as a young person, I totally believe that thing that is expected of us need to start first showing itself in the people that expect it of us. They need to bring us in, without that limiting factor of you're not my son or you're not my godson. We need to be able to allow open and equal opportunities for all.
Well, one of the challenges the country grapples with today is, high level of unemployment, particularly among the younger generation. And so many ideas have been put forward as to how to solve this. Agriculture, like you mentioned, people have talked about the contribution of services to the growth of the Nigerian economy. But it would seem these numbers still persist. And everyone looks forward to graduating and having something to do. How can we change this around? Get more people involved in skills acquisition and try to create job makers instead of job seekers.
It's absolutely essential, and it seems like a magic trick that nobody has come even close to mastering in Nigeria. We speaks about jobs every time. Everyone speaks about jobs, and the thing is, politicians love SMEs, for instance. Because they're fast, right? You could give 10 people 10 million naira, and you are sure to see stands or kiosks the next day. But how long does that go on, and how many jobs do those provide? So first of all, our kind of outlook towards enterprise and jobs provision through entrepreneurship needs to change.
Okay.
We need to have that idea of building companies that are in their outlook not small and medium entrepreneurship minded. I'm not saying that they have no place or they are not important. I absolutely believe in them, but I'd rather have one massive industry that springs out thousands of SMEs than have an SME that brings out only tens of jobs. So that is the first step from my point of view, that we need to kind of reorganize our thinking about entrepreneurship and enterprise. Then you mentioned something crucial, skills acquisition and development. You cannot just build a house and put in a few welding machines and say you've built an ultra-modern skill acquisition center. It does not work like that. Just like in agriculture and other sectors, we need to be able to look at the market and say, okay, from the looks of things, in the next quarter, there's going to be a high proliferation of, say, smartphones from Huawei in China. We definitely need people who can either build mobile apps for the Android version of that smartphone, or fix that smartphone when it's bad, or even set up a factory that will produce parts that that phone needs. That is simple. You can actually for free download documents that will give you this kind of intelligence. But we're not thinking towards that. Now we have already places like the computer village, or, you know, in most cities you find a computer village really, where young people go sell, repair and trade in things like these. We need to be able to look at those places, see how we can enhance them, how we can develop them. Because if you shut down that place for a day, you're going to see a massive change in the people that roam around the streets.
Yeah, but how can the mindset move away from, and now we're talking about ICT and its application solutions. A lot of people who are into ICT, one of the biggest challenges they say they face is the generalization that once you're into ICT, then you've got to be involved in something untoward. And everyone views you with some form of suspicion. How can that change? How can that be turned around? Why would the activities of a few become, for many Nigerians, the stereotype of just everyone?
Absolutely, that is a horrendous issue that bothers me every single day in Nigeria. The number of people that are picked up continuously just because they look a kind of way or they are carrying a kind of device, it's annoying.
The laptop and
absolutely. So you can see that our problem of attitudinal change actually goes beyond the top kind of positions of politics or governance, and goes down to the law enforcer who goes out as a police officer to do their job every single morning. We need to actually get an avenue of changing their mindset towards entrepreneurship and development for jobs to prosper. So this is just how complex the problem is. However, you have people who solve the problem for you by thinking that putting in more money will solve the problem. No matter how much money you put in, it's not going to change the fact that if I use my legitimately earned money and bought a computer, I might be arrested for suspicion of being a Yahoo boy, right? That is something inherent in the system of law enforcement that needs to be changed. And if you look at the same kind of scenario when it comes to even the stigmatization you go through when you're a kind of entrepreneur rather than another, it's also a problem. As if I was here as a farmer, trust me, coming into the studio would have been a challenge, you know? As opposed to if I came as an Abuja big man. So these kind of things need to actually be in the perspective of the people who develop our policies, who develop our solutions as, you know, as our leaders, right? And when it comes to the enablers, for instance, the banks, that also needs to change. Their approach towards investment, towards loans, towards credit needs to absolutely change. And there are other sectors that I believe going through them would require a thesis of sorts, right, because it's all interlinked, it's all intermingled, and you know the only way to solve the problem is to actually look at it from the perspective of questions and problem solving rather than one solution for all. You need to be able to isolate yourself and look at the problem in bits to be able to solve it. And that's a reproductive problem solving approach will not work for us. Just because years ago they set up NAPEP to alleviate poverty does not mean that we can reproduce that solution to set up another agency to solve a kind of poverty that NAPEP is not solving. It doesn't work like that. We need to look at the particular kind of problem, which in this case is jobs provisions and jobs for young people.
Let's talk a little bit about Nursery Emmama now. And it's necessary to put in perspective the thinking, the mindset of a Nigerian entrepreneur, the youth. And easily one would say, look, you're the recipient of numerous awards. I did say that at the start of this program. Probably too many to mention on this program. And you've been with the high and mighty, as they say, all over the world. And you've, as they say, rubbed shoulders with royalty, with the big entrepreneurs. And so, why is Nasser hanging around in Nigeria?
Well, I think that's an easy one. Nigeria, whatever we do is home. I mean, before I ever got out of the country, I was here. I went to primary school in Malumfashi in Katsina. I went to secondary school in Mina.
All right, yes, that's another part of it. And yes, we might just mention that a school right now known as Father O'Connell College,
Oh, yeah.
and you were Father O'Connell, and they're so proud of you, you know that.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
all over. So it's a school in Mina, a secondary school in Mina. So it's
Yes.
it's not some school somewhere.
Absolutely,
in
absolutely.
Leeds, so in
Indeed,
Right.
indeed. A matter of fact, exactly that. So, see, I am absolutely connected by every means possible to this country. And think about that. So, my family is kind of incredibly extended in itself, but also look at my family as a Nigerian now. I studied in Malumfash, I studied in Mina, I studied in Kazauri. I have friends from Enugu to Lagos to... So all of these people and all of our realities and all of our connection is not something that I'm willing to let go of at a, whim. And also, the problems that I face, like I told you, the problems that Nigeria faces, like I said in the beginning, are so peculiar, are so interesting for any innovator that really this is the place to be. I mean, I'm not glamorizing problems, but I believe that if you're able to solve any problem here, the kind of ripple effect, the kind of impact you have as an entrepreneur, as an innovator, and as a change maker are so profound that you'd rather not be anywhere else. Because recently a friend of mine from Berlin decided to come to Nigeria just because of a panel that I attended in Berlin. I was at the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture, and after speaking, he came up to me and said he wants to move to Nigeria. And that's because he believes that the kind of satisfaction you get from doing what you do is next to nowhere else is if you're in Nigeria. So these and many other things that I'd rather not give up are things that make me rooted to this country.
In other words, you believe in Nigeria,
Absolutely.
and in the Nigerian dream.
I absolutely believe in Nigeria.
Right. Nasser YAMMAMA, it's been interesting talking to you, and I hope you'll come again some other time so we can learn more about new ideas and how they applied to developing Nigeria. Thank you for being on One on One.
Thanks so much. Great pleasure being here today.
All right. Yeah, that's our program. Thank you for watching. Next week we'll be back with One on One. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.